Okay, welcome everybody to the Tuesday Chew. It's been quite a long time since we last did a Tuesday Chew, but here we are, still remote from one another, which is very appropriate given what we're going to talk about today.
It's looking like we're pretty close, to be fair.
Hey, listen, we look like we're in the same office, but where is this office actually, Roy?
London, Ontario.
Absolutely, and you and I are in where?
Well, I'm in Biddulph.
Yeah, and I'm over in Sandbach area. So, guess what? London, Ontario through to Sandbach and Biddulph. I mean, what can I say? The International Sandler Organisation. But we've been approved for live streaming on LinkedIn. So this is us testing out what the Tuesday Chew would look like as a live stream, which is a little bit, I suppose, it's a bit freeing because, the structure that we had previously on the Tuesday Chew was quite short. We typically go for 2, 3, 4 minute long videos, and we used to get some great feedback on it. And we've been inundated with literally a letter asking us to kind of bring the Tuesday Chew back to life. So, here we go. So we were talking earlier on about, I guess this wonderful world that we live in, and what the sort of coming months is going to look like. And all the smart money says that even when the current situation is over, quote unquote, it ain't going to really be over, because people are still going to be going back to, I suppose, back to some level of office environment. But there's quite a lot of people are still going to be working remotely, or the best guess is that most people, or many people, a big part of the workforce is going to be in some sort of hybrid arrangement where they're working partially from home, partially from office, partially from some more traditional working environments. So the whole landscape has changed. So I guess, in the spirit of, as the phrase we were using earlier on, a crisis doesn't cause problems. It simply highlights problems that were previously there anyway. What does that even mean for things like selling, for things like management, for things like organizational structure? What are your thoughts on it, Roy?
I think when you said the highlights, I think you said it well before when we were talking earlier, shines a spotlight on challenges that were already there. And I think that's true, particularly for sales and remote leadership. And if we just look at sales to start off with, I think the days of road warriors up and down the motorways, traveling between clients as their only client interaction, that's gone. That's gone. The tech has caught up, and I think when the accountants look at the end of year figures, while they might wince at the lack of sales, they will look warmly at the fact that there's quite a bit less in the way of 45p a mile, hotels, meals, going on there, and that's going to give them a warm feeling and saying, well, out of all the bad things that's happened, we should maybe look at doing more of this, or reducing this, and improving efficiency. And I know when I was in selling, although I might have done 45, 50 hours a week, in front of customer time was considerably less. And I think that's certainly been highlighted, that it is possible to sell remotely. And I think in our business, most of our clients now, I don't think we've met.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right, and it's funny. I was talking to a chap the other day, and I won't say his name, because I don't want to sort of I suppose be indiscreet. But he was still saying, and we must be 9 months into this thing now, and he was still saying, I can't wait to get back to normal. Can't wait to get back to normal, because he's been selling for 20, 30 years, and everything that he's been used to doing has been predicated on that sort of being able to have a nice firm handshake, and being able to look somebody in the eye and kind of look around their office and kind of pick up on things that are there and build like a relationship on the back of that. But to your point, he was probably seeing 5, 6, 7 people maximum per week, whereas if you're using the remote connections that we've got now through Zoom, through Teams, whatever your preferred methodology is, actually the reality is you can see an awful lot more people. And you can still build very meaningful relationships if you do it in a very authentic way. And that just means a different set of skills, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I was talking to a sales manager who was also saying similar things. When he gets back to normal, people go back on the road. You know, his guys are sat on their brains, wondering what to do. But whereas that face-to-face will never go away, and in certain industries, and certainly where I came from, you've got to go and look at the plant from time to time. But if you're having meetings where you just arrive at the building and you're sat in a meeting room and having a conversation, why can't it be done remotely? And I guess one of the spin-offs for this is all that time you're saving not being in the car. I mean, clearly it's great for the environment, but also, hey, you can do extra prospecting. You can be more effective. And now, as soon as I mentioned to a sales guy, you can do more prospecting if you're not sitting in the car, he went white with fear. but I mean, that's the truth. And recession just means people aren't selling enough stuff. So we're going to have to get better at selling more stuff to get out of recession. And if we don't need to be spending so much time sat on his brains on the M6, watching the world go by, and can prospect a bit more, there's real benefits to a business from that too.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I've got my little notes here, and I wrote down a list the other day of the things that we've lost through doing virtual and versus the things that you can actually do to compensate for it. So, yes, we've lost a handshake. Maybe you've lost a hug, depending on your particular tendency. Maybe you lose a little bit on the non-verbal cues of communication. So, you maybe lose a little bit of that. You might lose a little bit of eye contact and things. So maybe there's some connection elements that to do with physical proximity. And your feedback, I suppose, is limited to the screen as well. And I suppose, for people who are so used to that kind of personal, in-person communication, do they feel like they've maybe lost a little bit of that commitment? But I think the reality is that the things that you gain, you can actually, I suppose, offset some of that. You can say, well, okay, we're gaining time. There's an awful lot of efficiency there. You're gaining an element of efficiency in the sense that actually, because everybody feels that contraction of time, that actually you get to the point an awful lot more quickly. And I don't know if you've found that, but certainly I've found that people are much more willing to get into a more meaningful conversation more quickly with less, I suppose, having a coffee, having a bit of chit chat and maybe dancing around the handbags a little bit. That's not to say that means that people have the permission to be pushy, far from it. It just means that you can get into real conversations much more quickly, which is very productive, because you can't truly respect somebody and disrespect their time, including yourself, actually. So it's part of our job to do our best job on other people's behalf is to respect their time and to respect our own. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And, providing you practice with this stuff and you get good at it, actually, you can offset some of the things that you would otherwise lose as well. Just mitigate them a little bit. I mean, make eye contact by looking at the camera, for one thing. Bring your energy levels up about 20%, because actually that way you come across better on camera. And whilst it might feel slightly exaggerated to you, it's a bit like being on stage. The slightly exaggerated way of doing things means that actually you come across as your actual self. It's actually much more natural. But so it just takes a little bit of practice, and being your authentic self, but amplified a little bit, is what you need to be on camera. So you can sort of be very, very effective as well as efficient on this, I find.
I agree, and someone said it quite nicely to me. It's rather like you hear about people who lose their sight, their hearing becomes better. And for a salesperson, that cannot be a bad thing. Be better at listening when they're missing some of the verbal cues. But certainly other things do improve. So we had a mastery session today where hearing and listening was very important. And certainly, if we're spending more time working from not in front of the client, working remotely or talking in front of the client, we can plan more. We can build more effective pre-call plans. We can spend more time debriefing freshly, making sure we collect the important information. And also we can, there are a lot of tools. I mean, we're involved in one particular tool where we can look at the effectiveness of a call and take a photograph of a call and see how effective that is to allow us to either self-coach or coach with our peers, or even just be able to take it to a leader and say, hey, this is how this call went. How can I make it better? What should I do more of? What should I do differently? What can I do better?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the great benefit. There's a massive element to that, which is, having quantifiable data to say, here's where I'm doing things right. How can I do more of it? Here's where I'm doing things wrong. How can I avoid it? Here's where I'm letting myself down in my own process. Here's the thing that maybe I'm wimping out on. I'm not having the guts to kind of just plant my feet a little bit and just have the courage in my convictions. If somebody says to me a particular phrase, here's where it's happening every single time, and be able to look back at that, and even just little things for self-management. I mean, I know personally, I found it very, very useful being able to look back at the calls that I do and say, well, actually, Matthew, you know what? You really talk far too much at times. And you really talk far too fast at times. And, and I've just done it now, filler words like, I was looking at one of my calls the other day, 28-minute long call, right? Really nice, very good, great bonding and rapport, really genuinely sort of, had a good interaction. And in the 28 minutes, I used the phrase, 48 times. That's not great, is it? That's, I've just done it again. I'm now very, very conscious of the fact I'm saying, an awful lot.
I think there's real value, but it is a different culture, and we've had to move very quickly in a few weeks. Certainly, Forrester, who a global consultant, said that where we are now is where they expected us to be in 2030. And we literally moved in the way that we interact with clients 10 years in 10 weeks. And that brings its own problems. And some people would find new technology to analyze calls, to allow themselves to be self-coaching, to have a little bit more accountability remotely. They would find that a bit distressing and would not be comfortable, and that's not surprising. That's certainly not surprising.
A question for you. I mean, when you sort of look at that, I mean, is that down to just the situation, or again, have we got a situation where it's not the crisis so much as just simply shining a spotlight on pre-existing issues? So is that a cultural thing, do you think, around accountability generally?
I think it's change. There's been an absolute massive change, and there's only so much change someone can take in time. I've already heard words like Big Brother's watching you. I know my stuff. I don't need to be watched. Ultimately, when you're in sales, your job is to prospect and sell. And if there's anything out there that can help you to do that better, you shouldn't fight against it. And I guess we could be even talking a step too far. Only so many changes in a year, please, before people fuse, I guess.
I think that's fair. I do also, I mean, certainly the organizations I've worked with recently, I've noticed that there's a gulf that emerges quite quickly between the people who they see accountability as micromanagement and the ones who see accountability as an opportunity to learn and develop. And the ones who see it as an opportunity to learn and develop, they're the ones who will seek out an opportunity to be able to even self-coach. And they're the ones who'll be booking into their manager's diary. I want a session with you. I want a one-to-one. Where's my session with you so that we can go through the results? I want to be able to do this even better. And I also quite want to have a bit of praise for when I have done it well. So there's accountability is their opportunity to shine and their opportunity to improve.
I think,
go on.
No, I think one of the things that's missed in sales is capturing best practice. And as a sales manager, your challenge is finding where that best practice resides so you can share it. And how can we make it better to capture best practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you've captured it, well, you've got the genie in the bottle. You can start to replicate it, right? You can actually improve it, hone it, fettle it, tweak it, just get it to the point where best practice becomes even better.
Fettle it, and I like how you use that word now.
I'm speaking to the engineer in you.
Certainly there are plenty of opportunities with certainly from the sales, but also from the management point of view. Whereas previously you could only go out with one or ride alongs with one or two sales guys maybe a week if you were lucky. If you got an international team like I did in my last role, if you got out once or twice a month to see them, you're doing well. And I think that having an opportunity to get better at managing by capturing best practice, getting better at managing by using this sort of technology on a more regular basis, I think there's real value in it.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And being able to use the technology to your advantage there, it means that, especially with the elements of the artificial intelligence that goes along with this, it means you're actually not even having to wade through vast tracts of calls and things, because it's often the problem, isn't it, that when you've now got a surfeit of data, you drown in it rather than actually get any insight out of it. Insights are those hidden truths that you want to tease out of it. But if you're using the artificial intelligence that goes along with it in a smart way, well, it's not even like you have to go and, sort of take this scattergun approach of let's either wade through every single minute of it or just kind of dip in and dip out to kind of just check they're doing it okay. You can actually go directly to the perfect second within that recording that says, here's where, there was a trigger word or there was something which was particularly relevant. It means that actually you can start using things with a scalpel rather than basically a cudgel. It's quite impressive. So yeah, no, I think that there are some big opportunities with it. I guess, to the point that we made earlier on about what you lose when you're doing things remotely. What do you think you lose from a management point of view when you're managing remotely, and what can we do to offset it?
Gosh, a manager's job is to gather data on what his guys are doing or girls are doing, so that they can actually become a better manager by coaching their staff, by mentoring their staff, and identifying where the holes in their business or the holes in their skills are. And it's going to be difficult to do that when you're working remotely or you're not working 5 days a week in the office. And I say that there's going to be so much in the way of change in how we are effective managers. I think there's several more LinkedIn lives on that subject, on individual bits of that subject, certainly.
Probably is. Yeah, in fact, that probably makes us at least our next 4 weeks worth of work there, sort of talking about the various elements of that. It's a huge topic, and I mean, it's not going to go away. And what we define as being the right solution today, that could become the wrong solution tomorrow, and we've got to keep redefining excellence as we move towards it. Excellence should be almost a moving feast. you know, and the key thing here is the journey and having it in a process driven way so that actually everything becomes replicable and consistent, and you just keep on iteratively improving. Not that I can say that, but you know what I mean.
I think it's going to be a very interesting 6-8 months as far as sales leadership goes, what's becoming acceptable. I mean, there will be some return to a new normal we hear about. Yeah, I know. But there's got to be something there, and there's not going to be salespeople are not going to be working the way that they did a year ago.
No.
And the opportunities to make ourselves better, to sell more stuff, be more effective. I mean, as a sales manager, if someone said to me, can you, if I could give you a way where your salespeople could see twice as many prospects and clients as they're seeing now, spend less time per event and be more effective, is this something that'd be worth a listen? Hell yeah. And I think we're going to be in that stage. But there's not going to be any big switch pulled. It's going to be cultural. The leaders are going to have to lead it. They're going to have to nurture their semi-terrified staff along. And it's going to be a challenge for managers and staff alike, but it's going to be interesting. And we've got the B word coming up, haven't we? We've got the B word coming up.
The B word.
The Brexit word.
Oh, that. Yes. Oh God. Yeah. Okay. That's another excuse. Sorry. A reason why nothing gets sold.
Yes. But again, we're going to have to be far more effective. And trade. I mean, we talk about trade deals, but ultimately, someone's still got to sell stuff. It's just a pathway. If we can get better at this sort of remote selling, selling to clients in Canada, Finland, South Africa in the same day is unheard of. And it's going to be really interesting. And this sort of technology, specifically for exporters, is going to make a real difference if they do it correctly.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, we're going to have to be really careful here, of course, because there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there. And if they listen too closely to what we're saying, they're probably going to think, hang on, that means a sales manager invented the pandemic. Because it's a great opportunity to be able to see more clients remotely across the world. But I mean, all joking apart, you know, actually, you're right. It can be, if it's used in the right way, the current technology allows us to be more effective and more efficient. We just have to be mindful of the losses or the certain sort of reductions in our human contact, which means that we have to offset that. And certainly when it comes to managing, being very mindful of people's well-being, their mental states, and just making sure that we are doing the things that we should have been doing as managers anyway, and making sure that we're actually empowering our team to do the best job that they can possibly do, giving them genuine permission to do the things that they should be doing within the guidelines of the values and I suppose the ways of working that we've set out, and the parameters that within they should be working, so they know where they should be going. Because we're remote from them, of course, we can't just do it for them, which is what an awful lot of managers do. And certainly I was guilty of that back in the past. You know, I would see myself as, you know, as the manager, I had to be able to do the job better than them. And maybe I could in certain areas, but, you know, the reality was they were never going to learn to do it better than me if I just kept on doing it. And certainly a lot of managers who've not had much management training, where really the sum total of the training they've had has been somebody tapping them on the shoulder on the Friday afternoon saying, congratulations, you're getting a promotion, you start Monday. And that's literally all the training they get. You know, they tend to sort of learn by default that actually that's not the right thing to do, but it takes them a long time and they have to learn the hard way. Some of them never do learn. I know it took me ages, because my natural tendency is to try and rescue people. And I suppose that's one of the other challenges that might be highlighted a little bit by this crisis. So if you've got the right processes, you've got the right ways of working, then you can do an awful lot more efficiently. just takes a little bit more thinking, I suppose.
It very much takes me sort of sales to a link with lean manufacturing, where just in time was important. Resources, available resources were there in time rather than just sitting stocked up. And the scenario that I was taught was it's like lowering the sea level. So you've got less waste, less stuff hanging around. The only problem is if you lower the sea level, the rocks pop up. And if the rocks are popping up over the water level, just below the water level, that's when you can hold the boat and it can sink. And that links very nicely back to where we started, which was, a crisis doesn't cause a problem. It simply shines a spotlight on things that were already there. Maybe what's going to happen is the water level's going to drop as far as the way that we work, and the rocks now are beginning to get exposed, and something needs to be fixed.
Absolutely, you need a navigation plan, that's for sure, if you're going to get around some exposed rocks. That does bring us neatly back around to the beginning again. Nicely done, sir. That's very good, very professional. I was impressed with that. That was good. We could do this every week, couldn't we?
Yes.
stroke. I guess since that feels like we're kind of wrapping up, how can people get hold of you? Obviously here on LinkedIn, but how can people best get hold of you, Roy?
Well, I mean, LinkedIn is a great place. It's a great place to start. You can always message me or Matthew. So Roy Johnson, Sandler Training, Matthew Dashper-Hughes, Sandler Training, or Sandler Training by Roy Johnson and Matthew Dashper-Hughes. Always a good place to start. Yes, based in the UK. Happy days. Love to chat.
Fantastic. Likewise. Well, just for those who want to chat, my mobile is 07715 269 724. Always happy to have a conversation. My email is mdh@sandler.com, or just like Roy, you can message me here on LinkedIn. Do you want to share your contacts as well?
Yes, Roy Johnson, 07867 525 868, or roy.johnson@sandler.com.
Fantastic. And I think that's it for this week's very first live streaming Tuesday Chew. Have a fantastic week, everybody, and we will see you soon.
Take care. Have a good selling week.